Decoded.
Welcome back to Book Decoded, everyone. Ready to talk about plagues and history.
Always.
Yeah, it's time for another deep dive, and today we're tackling Plagues Upon the Earth, Disease and the Course of Human History by Kyle Harper.
This one is a real page-turner.
It is, isn't it? I mean, it sounds kind of dry, like, plagues in history, but
Right.
it's fascinating how he brings it all together.
It really is.
Like, you think about it, I'm like, okay, yeah, diseases obviously shape history,
Hmm.
but he really gets down into, like, the nitty-gritty details.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that makes Harper's book so compelling is that he starts with a really surprising fact, like right out of the gate.
Okay, lay it on me.
Scientists are still debating about how many organisms actually cause disease in humans.
Oh, really? I would have thought we had that figured out by now. Like,
Right, you would think.
with all our scientific advancements and technology.
So you'd think we'd have like a definitive list.
Right, yeah.
But it turns out a lot of those microbes that get identified as potential human pathogens, they're actually harmless most of the time.
Oh, wow. So, like, they might infect us, but...
Exactly. They might infect us occasionally, but they don't necessarily cause any, like, noticeable symptoms.
So we're talking about, like, the bacteria and viruses that cause colds or the flu. Are those, like...
Some of them, yeah.
Okay.
But Harper dives into this concept of generalist versus specialist parasites, and that's where things get really interesting.
Okay, so, like, generalist versus specialist, I mean, break it down for me.
So generalist parasites, think of them like opportunistic eaters. They can survive in a variety of hosts, not just humans, so they're not picky.
Right.
And then you have your specialists.
Okay, and those are the ones that are like, uh-oh.
Exactly. They've evolved to specifically target humans.
Oh, so they've gone all in on us.
They've gone all in on us, evolutionarily speaking.
Wow.
Think about the measles virus. It can only replicate in human cells.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that specialization has made it incredibly efficient at spreading between people.
Right.
Which is why measles outbreaks can be so explosive.
That's a scary thought.
Yeah, it is.
It's like, it really highlights, like, the power of evolution even on that microscopic level.
Absolutely.
You know, and Harper even mentions how the black rat,
Oh, yeah.
you know, notorious for spreading the bubonic plague, played a role in spreading other diseases too.
Well, they were like little disease couriers
Oh, wow.
spreading these morbilliviruses, relatives of the measles virus.
So they were just going around spreading everything,
everywhere they went as they traveled with humans.
and we were helping them along the way.
Well, we were inadvertently creating the perfect conditions for these diseases to spread and flourish.
Right. It's amazing, like, how interconnected everything is.
Yeah, it really is. You start to see these connections, and it's like, wow, it all makes sense.
It makes you wonder, like, what other surprising connections are hidden in history?
Well, Harper takes us on this fascinating journey through the ages, starting with one of the most significant turning points in human history, the adoption of agriculture.
Agriculture. Okay.
He describes it as an energy revolution.
An energy revolution.
I think that's a brilliant way to put it.
Okay, how so?
Well, think about it. Before agriculture, humans were hunter-gatherers, constantly on the move in search of food.
Okay.
But farming allowed us to produce our own food.
Right.
And that led to a more stable and abundant food supply.
Yeah.
That surplus of energy allowed human populations to grow and settle in one place, which had some unexpected consequences for our health.
Yeah, I can imagine, like, settling down in larger groups probably created some new problems.
Exactly. Larger, denser populations, especially with limited sanitation, created the perfect breeding ground for disease.
Oh, so like those generalist parasites we were talking about.
They thrived in these new environments.
Like too many cooks in the kitchen, but too many humans.
Precisely. And one of the biggest challenges early farmers faced was waste disposal.
Oh, yeah. Not the most glamorous topic,
Not at all.
but I can see how that would be a problem.
It was a major issue, contaminating water sources and leading to the spread of diarrheal diseases,
Oh, man. Yeah.
which were a huge problem throughout history and sadly still are in many parts of the world.
It's crazy how something like settling down and farming could have such a ripple effect on human health.
I know, and those ripples only grew larger as human societies became more interconnected.
You're talking about globalization.
Exactly. The rise of trade routes and empires, they didn't just exchange goods and ideas.
They shared pathogens, too.
Exactly. The Black Death is a prime example of how interconnectedness can have devastating consequences.
Yeah, wiped out, what, like half of Europe's population?
It's estimated that it killed over half of Europe's population.
That's just insane.
But the impact went far beyond mortality rates.
Right, like it must change society.
Absolutely. It caused massive social and economic upheaval, led to labor shortages, political instability, and even changes in religious beliefs.
Wow.
I mean, think
Yeah.
about it. When faced with such widespread death and suffering, people questioned everything they thought they knew.
It really puts things in perspective.
It does.
Like, something as small as a bacterium can topple empires.
It highlights how interconnected we are, even on a global scale.
Yeah, and speaking of interconnectedness, we can't forget about the Columbian Exchange.
Oh, that's where things get even more interesting and tragic, especially in the New World.
Right, so that's when the exchange of plants and animals and, unfortunately, diseases between Europe and the Americas really took off, right?
Exactly, but it wasn't an equal exchange.
Yeah, I mean, European diseases like smallpox, measles, and influenza devastated Native American populations.
Absolutely. It's estimated that up to 90% of the indigenous population in some areas of the Americas died from European diseases.
That's just unimaginable.
It's truly tragic, a staggering loss of life.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that something like a virus could have such a devastating effect on the balance of power between entire continents.
Disease doesn't discriminate.
Right.
It can topple empires as easily as it can kill individuals.
And in this case, it paved the way for European colonization.
Yeah, albeit in a tragic and heartbreaking way.
And those consequences had ripple effects too, didn't they?
They did. Harper points out how the sugar industry, which relied heavily on slave labor from Africa, unintentionally created ideal conditions for the spread of mosquito-borne diseases like yellow fever and malaria.
So the sugar plantations became even more deadly because of these diseases.
Unfortunately, yes, the mosquitoes thrived in the warm, humid climate and found plenty of breeding grounds in the standing water.
Wow, so the demand for sugar fueled the slave trade, which in turn led to the spread of these deadly diseases.
Yeah, it's a classic example of how interconnected everything is. Economics, politics, disease, ecology, all woven together.
Right, and those connections are still playing out today.
Absolutely. Even with all our advances in medicine and public health, we're constantly facing new infectious diseases. COVID-19 is a perfect example of that.
It's like Harper says in the last part of the book, the disinfected planet. We've made incredible progress, but we're not out of the woods yet.
Not even close. In fact, you could argue that our success has made us more vulnerable in some ways.
Oh, really? How so?
We've gotten so good at controlling some diseases that we've let our guard down.
Right, yeah.
We've invested less in public health infrastructure, and we've become complacent about the threat of infectious diseases.
So you're saying we're not as prepared as we could be?
That's a concern, yes, but there's another factor at play here: microbial evolution.
And so they're constantly changing.
Exactly. They're in an evolutionary arms race with us.
Wow.
And sometimes they're able to outmaneuver our defenses.
That's a sobering thought.
It is.
So what can we learn from history to prepare for future health challenges? What does Harper suggest?
Well, he emphasizes the importance of investing in public health infrastructure, supporting scientific research, and promoting global cooperation.
So being proactive, not reactive.
Exactly. We need to be proactive when it comes to infectious diseases.
I think that's a key takeaway.
It is.
We can't afford to be complacent.
We can't.
We need to be constantly vigilant, learning from the past, and preparing for the future.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the most important messages of Plagues Upon the Earth.
Yeah, it's not just a history book, it's a call to action.
Exactly. And speaking of revolutions, we can't forget about the Industrial Revolution.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Another major turning point in human history.
Right, and it had a huge impact on disease, too, right?
Absolutely. A profound impact on disease patterns.
Like, think about it. People flocking to cities for work, factories popping up everywhere.
Exactly. Cities were overcrowded, sanitation was poor, working conditions were often brutal.
Oh, so it was like the perfect storm for diseases to spread.
It really was.
So what were some of the big ones during this time?
Well, tuberculosis was a huge problem, especially in those crowded urban areas.
Right, consumption, they call it back then.
Yeah, a leading cause of death. And then there was scarlet fever, another major killer, especially among children.
And cholera was still hanging around, too, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, cholera continued to plague cities worldwide.
It's interesting how some of those diseases like tuberculosis and scarlet fever are pretty rare now, at least in developed countries.
Right.
So what changed? What led to their decline?
Well, a combination of factors, really.
Yeah.
Improvements in sanitation, the development of antibiotics, and the rise of public health measures all played a crucial role.
That public health movement in the 19th century was a big deal. Really.
Yeah, it really was a turning point.
Harper talks about guys like Edwin Chadwick in England and Rudolf Virchow in Germany.
Right, these public health pioneers.
They were starting to understand the link between poverty, sanitation, and disease,
They were really ahead of their time.
advocating for things like clean water, sewage systems, better
It
housing.
seems so obvious now.
Right. But back then,
Radical ideas.
yeah, totally.
And, they really did have a profound impact on public health. Like when London implemented a new sewage system in the mid-19th century,
Okay.
the cholera outbreaks that had been devastating the city virtually disappeared.
Wow, that's amazing. It's like proof that these initiatives actually save lives.
Absolutely.
But it wasn't just about big infrastructure projects, right?
Right.
Like, what about personal hygiene?
Oh, yeah, that was huge. The 19th century saw this growing awareness of the importance of personal hygiene.
Okay.
Things like hand washing, bathing, clean clothing.
Simple stuff.
Yeah, but it made a huge difference.
It's a good reminder that we all have a role to play in protecting public health.
Absolutely.
Sometimes the smallest actions can have the biggest impact.
Couldn't agree more. And that brings us to another interesting aspect of the public health movement,
Which is,
the war on insects.
oh yeah, the war on those tiny little disease carriers. I remember Harper talking about the campaign against houseflies. It's kind of funny now when you think about it. Like these intense battles against flies.
But at the time, the housefly was public enemy #1.
Really?
Oh, yeah. People were using window screens, fly swatters, insecticides, anything to get rid of them.
I mean, it makes sense when you think about how they spread typhoid fever.
It does.
It's just wild how much effort went into battling these tiny creatures.
It really highlights how our understanding of disease transmission was evolving at the time.
Right, scientists were starting to pinpoint the role of insects.
Exactly, like in spreading diseases like malaria, yellow fever, typhus.
So we started to figure out how to control those diseases too, right?
Yeah, things like mosquito netting and insecticide spraying started to emerge.
It's amazing how much progress was made in just 1 century.
It really was a transformative era for public health.
But the story doesn't end there, right?
No, not at all.
The 20th century was a whole new ballgame.
It was.
We saw even bigger advances in medicine and public health.
We did.
I mean, we're talking about antibiotics, vaccines, huge improvements in sanitation.
Absolutely.
I mean, penicillin in 1928, that was a game changer, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Ushered in the era of antibiotics.
Revolutionized the treatment of bacterial infections. And then vaccines, I mean, they've saved countless lives.
They really have a major public health triumph.
It's hard to imagine a world without vaccines now.
It is.
But even with all this progress, Harper reminds us that we're not invincible.
Right.
Like COVID-19 showed us, new infectious diseases are still a threat.
That's why it's crucial to keep learning from the past and to remain vigilant in the face of these ongoing challenges.
Absolutely.
We have to be ready for whatever comes next.
Right, we can't just assume that we've conquered disease.
Exactly. The story is far from over.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
From the earliest plagues to modern medicine, it's clear that the story of humanity is deeply intertwined with the story of disease.
That's one of the big takeaways from Plagues Upon the Earth.
It really is.
These microscopic enemies have shaped our societies, our economies, even our genes.
It's a reminder that we're not just individuals.
Right.
We're part of a larger ecosystem.
Precisely. And our health is inextricably linked to the health of that ecosystem.
That's a powerful insight, and it leads us to a crucial question.
Okay.
Knowing how disease has shaped us, what can we do to prepare for the next health challenge? What can our listeners take away from this discussion to apply in their own lives?
Yeah, that is the million-dollar question, isn't it? After reading Plagues Upon the Earth, what's the one thing you want our listeners to remember? Like, what's the most important takeaway?
I think the biggest thing is we can't be complacent. We have to be proactive.
Right.
Investing in public health, supporting scientific research, promoting global cooperation.
Yeah, COVID really showed us how quickly a new disease can spread.
It did. It was a wake-up call.
We're all in this together.
We are.
It's not just about me, it's about everybody.
It's about the health of the entire planet.
So what can we do? I mean, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by all of this.
Yeah, it can feel daunting, but even small actions can make a difference.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Staying informed about health issues, supporting organizations working to improve global health.
Okay.
Even just practicing good hygiene. Yeah, the simple things.
Those things can contribute to a healthier future.
So it's about awareness.
It is.
Understanding how interconnected our world is.
Exactly. And that's where books like Plagues Upon the Earth come in.
Right.
They help us understand the history of disease,
Yeah.
how it spreads, and what we can do to stop it.
Well said. Kyle Harper's Plagues Upon the Earth is a really fascinating book, and I definitely recommend it to anyone who wants to learn more about this topic.
It's a must-read, for sure.
It makes you think.
It does.
It's a reminder that we've made progress, but the fight isn't over.
It's a call to action.
It is urging us to learn from the past and work towards a healthier future.
For everyone.
Well, this has been an amazing conversation. I've learned so much.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a pleasure, and thanks to all of you for listening to this episode of Book Decoded. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a thought-provoking book. Until then, stay curious, stay healthy, and keep those pages turning.